Now that's what I call a sunset.
It's our time with Mr. Mayberry. Hey, let's get creative.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Mr. Mayberry.
Today we're going to use watercolor paint to paint a pretty fall sunset. But before we start, let's do our paper exercise. Hold up your paper this direction and let's say together, portrait, landscape, portrait, landscape. Today I'd like you to have your paper the landscape way when we paint. You might want to wear an apron or a paint shirt so you don't get paint on your clothes. Well, let's get started. It's time to paint. Okay, for this project you'll need a piece of paper. You might want a little heavier paper because we're painting on it, and it'll work better if you have a heavyweight paper. Also, don't forget, put your name on the back first before we start, because it's harder to write your name on it once it has paint on the front. Next, you'll also need some water for this, so a container with water. Don't fill it, because if it spills, there'll be less to clean up if you don't fill it. Also, you'll need a watercolor brush. Now, this has soft bristles on it, and you'll need some watercolor paint. You might also want to keep a sponge handy or a wet rag in case you make a spill. And then also some paper towels to wipe your hands as we work or as we get done. Okay, we're making a sunset picture, and we're going to be using red, orange, and yellow. Now, something you need to know about watercolor paint, there's a couple things that make it different than, say, tempera paint. Number one is this. Tempera paint is supposed to be thicker. It's supposed to be more solid. Watercolor paint is supposed to be lighter and kind of see-through. So we don't put as much paint on. You don't use quite as much as you would with tempera paint. Something else is watercolor paint takes water to make it work. That's why they call it watercolor. If I just tried to paint from the palette here without any water, it's not working. It doesn't work. But if I dip my brush in the water, and then I might tap a little bit of that off, and then I wipe it on the watercolor paint, then it'll work. This is going to be very light. Now, one thing about watercolor too is you want to rub your brush on the paint, but you do not want to scrub. You don't try to dig it out. Your paint will not last very long if you do that. Plus, you don't want to if you get too much water, all the paint will go into the water and you won't have as much paint on your paper. So you just have to kind of practice with it till you get about the right amount of water and the right amount of paint. Now, what I want to do for this sunset, we're making a lovely sunset today, is I want to cover the top third of the paper with yellow. So if I'm dividing the paper into 3 equal parts, the top part's going to be yellow, the bottom part's going to be red, and the middle part is going to be orange. So I'm going to start with the yellow on top. See how it's light and see-through? That's the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be really dark, but it's going to look cool when we get done. So I just keep painting. Oh, I got a lot of water in the paint now, so I'm going to just work out a bit. Okay, so there's my yellow. I'll add just a little bit more. I've painted about a third of the way down on the paper. Okay, next I'm going to clean my brush out. And you want to make sure you get all the paint out before you change colors, because if you don't, you'll end up mixing the colors up here in the tray, and that kind of gets the paint dirty. You don't want to do that because it makes it a mess. It'll all turn kind of a yucky color if you do that. Okay, so I'm putting water in my brush, and then I wipe it on a paper towel till it looks clean. Looks like there's no more paint in it. Okay, I'm ready to change and go to the next color. Okay, next I'm going to go to the bottom and do red next. So I get water on my brush, and I wipe it in the red, and then I'm going to paint the paper. It's kind of neat to see how the paint moves around in the water. and moves it around. There we go. Okay, so I cover the bottom third of the painting with red paint. Again, it looks a little bit pink. That's because it's light and see-through. You're not supposed to make it super dark. Okay, now we're going to fill the middle with orange. So I need to clean my brush out and get it good and wet and kind of go back and forth in the water a bit, and then I wipe it on my paper towel until it looks like there's no paint coming out anymore. It's all empty of paint. And then I can change colors. Okay, so orange is our final color. And I'm going to put it in the middle. Then I'm going to go ahead and try to overlap or cover up a little bit of the red and a little bit of the yellow. You might want to go ahead and let's fill it in first, and then you can kind of mix it on the paper, because we don't want to try to mix it in the tray. We want to mix it on the paper. So I'm going to fill all this in first in between the two. Now I'm going to take some orange, put some orange on my brush, and I'm going to try to mix it with the red first. Okay, and I'll just keep adding a little bit of water. I can add some more paint, but again, you have to be careful that you don't mix the red and the orange in the tray. So I'm trying to mix these two together as they're side by side so that our colors kind of blend from red all the way to yellow. Now I'm going to clean my brush out just a little bit. I don't want to end up mixing it in the tray, so I'm going to clean it out just a little bit, and then I'm going to get some more orange. Go back up here. In fact, I think I'll put some all along here first. And then I'll get some water, and I'm going to mix those together, yellow and the orange together. Just kind of swirl it around on the paper, mixing that together. So like I said, what we have is we're going from red all the way to yellow, and it looks like a gradual change, just like you would see in the sky in the sunset in the fall. In fall we have very beautiful sunsets. Okay, you've noticed I didn't mention it earlier, but I did cover my work surface with paper because I am painting the whole page, and that's a good idea. If you hopefully you caught that I had done that before you start. Now, my paper is colored with a beautiful sunset. I want you to keep this paper because we're going to do something with this next time. That's our project for today, a fall sunset. Well, that's all for today. Don't forget to keep your paper. We'll need it for next week's project. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Well, I'll see you next time.
Goodbye, Mr. Mayberry.